Hello, this is Agnish Bhaduri from Visitech Solutions. Welcome to the first part of the Cryptocurrencies course, the story of money. We believe that it is extremely important to understand the concept of money, its story, the previous mediums of exchanges used, what went right with those mediums, and more importantly, what went wrong to understand why we have arrived at the concept of a Bitcoin. We need to understand why people are calling the Bitcoin the most revolutionary method of payment ever created. And to understand this, let's go back several years. Let's start with 6000 BC, when people started using the barter system. Then we moved on to the coins around 650 BC. We started adopting the first forms of printed currency around 960 AD. The first form of a check came around 1717 AD. PayPal introduced the digital cash concept in around 1998, and finally, the concept of the Bitcoin was released in 2008. So let's start with the barter system. The barter system in its inception was pretty simple, and it was the first medium of exchange known to mankind. The system was logical. Every individual would produce that good or service that he or she specialized in and exchanged it for that good or service that he or she required. Now this worked well for a while, but there were many flaws that emerged later. The first one was that there was no common unit of value. So let's take a sample case to understand this. Let's say we have two individuals, A and B. A produces rice and B has herds of cattle. Now A and B decide to exchange 10 quintals of rice for one cow. Now, this valuation that one cow is the equivalent of 10 quintals of rice has been decided between A and B at that particular point of time. This may change tomorrow, and A's rice may not be valued as much with a third vendor. So suppose A now wants oranges, and A goes to C who produces oranges. He will now have to come up with a different valuation every time he wants to exchange rice for a different good. So the first main flaw was that there was no common unit of value. Moving on to the second flaw, goods were perishable. This is easy to understand. Cows, rice, these are all perishable goods. They have varying shelf lives. However, if I have one good today, say rice, and I need another good, say a cow, maybe a year later, my rice is not going to last till then. So basically, there was a difference in the timing of demand and supply in the system. The next flaw was that the transportations of goods wasn't as efficient. Again, a very simple point. Transporting large goods was always going to be an issue. And finally, there was no security in the system. Your goods could simply be stolen and used by someone else. You didn't have your own identity on your own assets. Then we approached the concept of gold coins. Men soon realized that gold was a common good that was valued by everyone. And that solved one of the basic problems of the barter system, that there was now a common unit of value. Gold coins are also non-perishable. They also had a very important point, and I would like you to note this down for when we go and reach the stage of the Bitcoin. Gold was non-inflationary. There was always a limited amount of gold reserves in this world. Now, this meant that demand would always keep rising, whereas supply would always be limited. This makes any asset non-inflationary in nature. That means its value will only keep going up. It will never go down. And finally, gold was easily transportable. They were much smaller in size and they were uniform in size. No longer did two different people have to transport two different goods which were different in sizes. Now we come to the flaws. Of course, gold coins weren't perfect, and that is why we don't use them anymore. The first was that they were expensive to mine. Mining gold was not an easy procedure. Second, although we say that they were now smaller in size and easier to carry around, Compare them to today's currency. In hindsight, they were still heavier. Just compare the thought of having to carry your wallet around and a huge sack of gold around. And finally, gold was still not secure. They could still be stolen and used by anyone. That means that they still did not solve the most elemental problem of the barter system, that is security. Next, we came to the concept of paper currency. Now, how did paper currency come around being used? People wanted to solve the issue of security of gold coins. So, they started depositing gold coins with a third party, which we now call banks. In exchange for this gold, banks would then issue an IOU note or a receipt that validates the receipt of this gold. Any person who had these IOU notes could then exchange these for goods elsewhere. These IOUs were nothing but the first form of fiat currency as well. However, their value was backed by an actual physical amount of gold. Now, what were the benefits of the system? First, they were lighter than gold coins and much cheaper to produce. And second, they were backed in value by something. In the initial stage by a tangible commodity like gold, and later by an intangible commodity like the trust of the government that issues these notes. However, it also had its flaws. The first, again, paper currency did not solve the issue of security. Anyone could steal these notes and then use them again. Second, fiat currencies were inflationary. So a fiat currency is a form of a currency that is backed by an intangible good like the trust of the government. Now, because there is no tangible substance backing the value of these notes, a government could print as many as possible. But due to the market forces of supply and demand, the more number of notes that were printed, they would lose their value. Third, black money and parallel economy. There was no way of keeping track of the supply of this money, for what it is being used and who holds it. And that is why they were being used for purposes like creating black money and having a parallel economy. And finally, the gold system, which was done away with in 1970s, because it reduced the flexibility of the central bank to implement the key monetary and fiscal policies required to regulate the economy of the country. We then came to the concept of checks. Now, I believe that the check is very important in concept for the Bitcoin. There are many features that the check has that are very similar to the Bitcoin. First, the check finally improved on the security of the mediums of exchange. It specified the sender identity, the receiver identity, the sender address, and the receiver address. And this point is vital to understanding the Bitcoin later on. The second is that it used a very basic form of cryptography called the signature to validate that it is indeed the actual sender who's authorizing this transaction. Again, a very important point from the perspective of the Bitcoin. And lastly, the user could change the amount. No longer did one piece of paper have to stand for only one unit, like the paper currency. However, the flaws associated with the system were that there was a form of check called the bearer check, and whoever bore that check could actually exchange it for the amount specified. This reduced the security aspect of the check. Second, the form of cryptography being used was too basic, the signature, and eventually they could be easily faked. And finally, the biggest flaw with the check system was the transaction verification time. The verification was done much later. We know the system. The sender gives the receiver the check. The receiver then goes to his own bank at a convenient date and deposits the check. Then the receiver's bank would connect with the clearance authority, which would then connect with the sender's bank, verify that the sender had the amount in his account, and then the transaction would go through. Now, the issue with the system was that at the time of the transaction, the receiver would have to give the sender the goods in exchange for the check. But he did not know whether the sender has that amount of money in his account to fulfill the transaction. We then moved to the system of e-wallets with the birth of PayPal. Now e-wallets almost seem perfect because 1. There's no need of paper money. You don't have to carry a wallet around anymore. 2nd, with the current growth of the smartphone industry and the internet industry and higher levels of cryptography being used, this level of security is much higher. In today's world, almost every phone comes with iris scanners and fingerprint sensors, and these can be used to validate transactions. These are far more superior ways of validating transactions than a signature. 3rd, they're fast, efficient, and convenient. Transaction verification happens in a couple of seconds, and this solves the biggest issue that the check system had. And finally, e-wallets incorporate a much higher level of accountability in the financial system. Now, this enables the regulatory authorities to keep a track of the supply of money, who has how much, and what it is being used for. This could reduce the amount of black money and the amount of money being used for illegal purposes. Now, on the face of it, e-wallets seem pretty perfect. They're a relatively new technology, everyone is using them, and they don't seem to have any flaws. And yes, technically they didn't, and they're still very convenient. So the big question is, why did we have to come up with an alternative system, a new upgraded system called the Bitcoin? Well, you see, the main issue with e-wallets, something that is not apparent even now, is that they are still a part of the existing financial infrastructure. Don't understand what I mean? Very few people did before 2008. In 2008, the world saw the errors and the flaws within the existing financial infrastructure. It revealed that there's an inefficient and corrupt financial system in place. The subprime mortgage crisis that happened, due to which financial markets crashed in a domino effect, large investment banks went bankrupt, and the government started bailing out several banks which, to use the correct term, were too big to fail. And finally, there was the largest recession in global markets since 1929. But this was the economic aftermath. And I'm not going to go into the details of what happened in 2008. But let's look at the emotional aftermath of this crisis. People lost faith in the financial systems. The whole point of a bank is to have a trusted third party who's keeping your wealth safe. A better alternative to keeping hard cash at home. And we used to trust them to keep this money safe. But they did not. They misused this money and they lost all of it. This is when people understood that there is no alternative. They started mass withdrawals from banks. And then they realized that there is no substitute to the current system. Either you keep all of your money at home, which in today's scenario is not a great idea, or you give it to a bank whom you can no longer trust. There was a need for an alternative system, a message to be sent to the financial banks that if you do not perform, there is another person we can go to. And then we came to the year of 2008. Towards the end of 2008, a group of individuals or a single individual under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto released a white paper that was titled Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. This white paper was so revolutionary, it challenged the very concept of money and the whole concept of having an intermediary to handle that money. There's a reason why we say that the Bitcoin is the most sophisticated and disruptive technology ever invented. In the next few videos, we will look at how the Bitcoin works and why it is so disruptive, and how it proposes to completely replace the current system. I hope you enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for the next video where we will look at how the Bitcoin functions. This is Agnish Bhaduri. Thank you.